Here we are with Inntopia DestiMetrics, 5 things you need to know for September 2021. So, convergence of forces. So, if you saw the DestiMetrics briefing that came out just a few days ago, there's a lot of talk of what Tom has coined convergence of forces, which are all the things that are going on within the economy and in the national headlines that are affecting what has really been a lot of positive data that's been coming out of the lodging performance metrics that we keep track of in DestiMetrics and within Inntopia. So it's probably not a big surprise because obviously we're still in a pandemic, but what these forces are, and after we get through our highlights, we'll go dive into more detail, but one being consumer confidence. So consumer confidence has dipped to its lowest level in 6 months. Inflation, or in the PPI, the Producer Price Index, is at an all-time high. You're looking year over year, the PPI has increased almost 10%. So we'll dive into that more, but it's basically if you're feeling like your dollar isn't stretching as far as it used to, it's because it's not. Wildfires. So we're happy to have Carl here, and I'll dive into that, but that has been a big influencer on Western mountain resorts in particular. And then, of course, COVID and the Delta variant. Lots of trepidation around rising cases, and Tom's going to show you some graphics about where we are with that. But also, it's going to hinder international travel once again with restrictions and borders still not opening. So that's number one, and Tom's going to take us through the rest.
Thank you, Katie. Good morning, everybody, or afternoon, depending on where you are. Number 2 on our 5 things you ought to know is that booking pace slowed pretty sharply last month over the course of August. Reservations taken in August for all arrival dates are down. They were down 27% compared to August of 2020, when we were seeing a pretty strong surge during the month as the summer caseloads were dropping then, and down 16% compared to the pre-pandemic August of 2019, which is really sort of the normal metric that we want to measure against. And this decline in booking pace as cases go up is a return to booking patterns we saw during the last 2 surges in COVID-19, where we saw short lead bookings really being impacted and long lead bookings kind of picking up. And so if we take a look at the incremental fill booked during August for August and September arrival, if we look at August arrivals this year, 3.4% was the change in occupancy for August between the 1st of August and the 31st. Last year, that was 14.1% as we saw that surge in bookings, and in a more normalized 2019, about 8.4%. Bookings taken in August for arrival in September were at 5.3%. Incremental fill, 14.8 last year, 9.4 this year. We'll dive a little bit more into this, but it is absolutely a reflection of some changing values and intent by consumers. And next is that summer room nights booked are down, and it doesn't feel that way if you walk around town and look at how busy it is, and everybody's kind of running hamster on the wheel to keep up. But room nights booked for summer season are actually down 3.3% versus the pre-pandemic 2019. Now, the average decline for May, June, August, and September, which are the 4 declining months of the summer, is 8.2% in room nights booked, while July and October were up. So if we take a look at the chart that we've got on here, we can see this decline in room nights booked, but we can also see this huge decline of 5.04% in room nights available for the summer. And so that's actually resulting, because it's a bigger decline in room nights available than there is in room nights booked. We're actually getting a positive occupancy rate of 1.8%. And so don't judge a book by its cover. Even though there's an 1.8% occupancy gain, there are fewer room nights booked. And that's important if you're planning based upon things like occupancy. And it's not the only month or the only season in which we're seeing it. I'm going to dive into that a little bit later as well. Number 4 is that COVID-19 caseloads are a lead indicator of bookings, at least through our system, and whether we're looking at the DestiMetrics data or whether we're looking at the Inntopia Commerce data. the booking volume is really sort of inversely proportional to new cases of COVID-19. And this chart shows you in the red line the surge of cases going back to May and the decline in bookings relative to itself. And they have crossed over like this a few times during the pandemic. So this isn't a one-off. We're just showing the most recent view. Since this trend is appearing in all three surges, people should really be looking at caseloads and thinking that they are going to have an impact on bookings. It sounds intuitive, but folks aren't necessarily using it as a leading indicator. So why does that matter? Well, pent-up demand is really strong, and that's what's been driving us for a long time. But consumers are still sensitive to COVID, even after a year of sort of desensitization and responding to it. So that's important to keep in mind as well as we think about the different things that are driving consumers and some of those forces and converging during August. And number 5 things you need to know, the DestiMetrics as of August 31st. The left-hand side will have summer. On the right-hand side, we'll have winter, because there's a pretty good view of winter now. And if we just take a look at year-over-year variances, occupancy versus 2020 is up 65% year-over-year. ADR, average daily rate, is up 22%, and RevPAR is up 101%, which is a huge increase. Nobody should be surprised about that. And if we look ahead to winter, occupancy is up 86% versus last year, rates up 24%, and RevPAR is up 132%. Going and instead of looking at the recovery from the bottom, which is what a comparison to last year does, let's take a look at a long-term trend and how that's doing. And versus 2019, we can see that summer occupancy is up 1.8%, but we just had a conversation about that. And summer occupancy is up based on room nights available, but not necessarily room nights booked. 33% gain in average daily rate continues to be a dramatic and very strong component of the data. Rate is really holding on, and 35% gain in RevPAR. Winter, looking back compared to this time, looking forward rather to 2019-20 season at the same time, was 7.8% gain in occupancy, a 19% gain in average daily rate, and a 29% gain in RevPAR. So things are all on the up and up versus not just last year, but versus 2 years ago, which is probably more important in the long run. And with that, that sort of wraps the balance of the 5 things that I've got. So just turn it over quickly to Katie to transition on to the next part of the webinar.
Thanks, Tom.